Good morning. Hello. It's the Jeff Sargent Show. Last show of the week. It's Friday.
Not just any Friday, chum. What Friday is it?
Oh my God!
Hot Chick Friday.
Hot Chick Friday every Friday on the Jeff Sargent Show.
Our hot chick is finally here. Devorah is here doing the dancing hand symbols.
Yeah.
Or she's shooting webbing the wrong way. It's under, baby, and it's 2 fingers.
Yeah, she was here before we were.
She beat us to the station, which is
she beat us all the way from Hollywood, California.
She's from Hollywood, California. She beat us to the station, and she also has a much nicer vehicle than we do.
A nice Porsche 944.
Hey, let's not aid her stalkers too much.
Yeah.
It's a beat-up old Dodge.
It's a beat-up old Dodge from the garage.
You would never know a stunning blonde is driving it.
Something about blondes in Porsches is,
it's like
kind of exciting.
It's like an Andy Sedaris movie. Ha! A reference you did not get.
It's a little more faster than ladies in Mercedes.
Wow, it must have taken you all morning to rhyme that.
Oh, yeah.
So we are with the charming Devorah Scott. Say hello, Devorah.
Firestone.
Oh, Devon!
You know what?
It. Sorry, Lord.
Go, wait. Back it up. Let's start all over.
We're with the lovely Devorah Firestone.
Come on. Would you hear me when I got out of the car and I go, it's Devorah
I
Firestone.
know.
In this corner, Devorah Firestone, the world's champion.
I kept thinking Devorah Tires. You know what I mean? Tires. Scott Tires is actually on 4th and Vineyard.
But Firestone tires are in every shop.
Are you related?
I'm not.
Oh, I'm sure you looked.
Yeah, it could have been your great-great-grandpa who started the Firestone Tire Company.
Before he was beaten and robbed.
By who? What tire company? Michelin? Who?
Yeah, sure, gotta be Michelin. Their guys are big and balloony.
Oh, boy. I think I'm going to start live streaming here.
I think you have to.
Uh-oh.
Smile, baby.
And here we go. Comments will appear. Okay, start the interview.
Okay, we're with the lovely Devorah Firestone. Devorah, where are you from originally?
Oh, I am from Chantilly, Virginia.
Wow, interesting.
It's fairly near Washington, D.C., and it's been quite interesting being here in L.A. I've been here for 2.5 years.
Really? No. Did you come out for more acting, or did you come out for just to be on the West Coast?
Well, I came here for acting. I came here for Hot Men, and I came
Wow.
here for...
You're covering them today, baby.
Hey, Pat, where's Hot Men Friday? Hot Guy Friday. It doesn't exist.
If you start doing Hot Men Friday, I'm quitting the show. That's not why I'm here.
No, unless she's at the control board.
Yeah, well, if she's the control board, obviously we can make some adjustments.
Yeah.
And, of course, I came here for the awesome company.
Oh, bravo. Well, awesome company, and we can guarantee you for the next hour and 55 minutes.
Excellent.
So you came out to the West Coast. This is cool. And you started acting in Virginia.
Yes, I did. I did some pieces for the ID channel, which included Wicked Attraction, Monsters and Mysteries in North America.
Wow.
One of our specialties. Go on.
And, of course, Fatal Attraction.
Fatal Attraction. Oh.
Oops. Not Fatal Attraction. Fatal.
Here, I'll tell you. It's right here on the IMDb.
Yeah.
It's right there on my IMDb.
It's called... Wait a second.
Jeff can't read. It's one of those secret tragedies of our show.
But anyway, it was great. I did that with a great Latin star named Elisa Mary, and she's really a lot of fun, and she's in and out of LA too.
Do you kill her, or does she kill you?
No, I don't kill her. I just fire her for behaving badly.
Wow. And what happens? Does she come back and stalk you?
Thankfully, no. But I try to be very, in that one, my character tries to be very sympathetic to the fact that I'm relieving her of her job.
Oh. And are you?
I hope so.
Oh.
But those were definitely a trip to do in the Virginia Beach area, and I had a lot of fun going out there and working with people and just getting into the world of TV and seeing what can happen. And,
actress, model, bass player. Is that true?
Yes, I play some electric and some upright bass.
Really?
Upright
wow.
bass? That's not easy to do.
If we had you on yesterday with Cannibal and we had Cannibal and the Headhunters drummer David on, Robert Zapata on, and we would have loved it. See, I just effed up his name too. No, but it would have been great to hear a bass meeting a drummer.
Oh, I love drums.
Well, I should have brought my Thunderbird bass and taken some photos with it.
Oh, that would be fun.
Nothing better, hotter than a blonde bass player that can play.
Yeah, Monsters and Mysteries in America. That's exciting. You're in the Acid Rain segment?
Yes, it is. It is called Toxic Rain. And,
Toxic Rain, sorry.
And it does cause notable problems to my character's mom, who was an actual person. A lot of those things are actually based on real events. So someone actually did get sick from some rain that fell that had lots of goo in it.
But was she foaming at the mouth like she does in your episode?
Probably.
Because I wasn't sure if they're trying to hype it too much.
I mean, you do have reason to take someone to the hospital in theory. So
this is true.
So someone being sort of stunned on the floor and unable to answer you would be a great reason to take someone to the hospital.
But as well as being a stunning woman, you're a data and you're an engineer as well.
Yes, I'm a digital accessibility engineer, which means I do stuff with apps and websites and things like that, and I help to simulate the experience of people with disabilities so that I can find out if they can use the products.
Really? Wow,
that's amazing. That's great.
As day jobs go, it's not a bad one.
And you're doing a good service. Helping people.
Thank you. Yes, I do my best. I'm definitely in it, and I'm lucky enough to know a lot of people with disabilities who have really interesting capabilities. So it's a lot of it is just getting that opportunity to learn that.
Are you helping your fake mother from Mysteries and Monsters in America? She's foaming in the mouth and can't leave because of the toxic rain.
Well, I should get you involved with my other friend, John. Remember John with our amputee friend who does the disability
He's also
film
a surfer.
festival.
He's also a surfer.
Yeah. No. That was Craig.
Oh, that was Craig, his friend. Yeah. Craig Reed.
So we've had two people on the show and that get involved in the Disabilities Film Challenge.
But you, as a sci-fi nerd, would like this. They were both Borg. They both played Borg in Star Trek.
That's amazing.
See, I knew that would impress you.
It would.
I've yet to meet an engineer who's not wowed by Star Trek. Up to and including my late father.
I'm definitely wowed by Borg. I'll tell you that.
Wow. Well, the Borg are interesting. I mean, the creator of the Borg went to the Claremont colleges.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
He passed away last year. I ran into Brandon Braga, the Star Trek Next Generation writer, and he told me the guy had just passed away. But there's a bunch of references to the Claremont colleges and the Borg, right down to the number 42, which I guess was the hall. You know what I mean? They were named. The Borg hall, the Borg ship, looks like the hall, the square building that the engineers studied in at Cal Poly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, so the Borg cube is literally based on the engineering building.
Wow, I'm going to have to go take a look now.
It's well worth a look, yeah. So to me, it's fascinating that something so international as the Borg came from something very local, and my interview with Craig Reed and the other two guys should be running sometime soon in Star Trek the magazine.
Infinity.
Infinity will be. I've got a bunch of stuff coming up in Infinity. Infinity's a British magazine I've been running.
Does it come out monthly?
Monthly, yeah. No, it's a monthly mag. I did the last thing I did for them. I did a retrospective on the Hulk. The 40th anniversary of the Hulk TV show. I did Christy Marie, who is she's a cosplayer. She became.
Oh, okay. Right.
She's sort of the Minnie Mouse of San Diego Comic-Con.
Oh, that's awesome.
She's this girl who dresses like Slave Leia and goes to the Comic-Con. But so many people... No, I know you're laughing at the commercialness of it, but I assure you, so many people have seen her that a bunch of artists have drawn her into different comics.
Oh, like she's like the new Greta Garbo.
Yeah, the Greta Garbo as a Marvel girl. You'd appreciate this. That's her on the cover of Ultimate Thor #1. You know what I mean?
Wow.
As Sif.
That's awesome.
She looks like a Disney princess, so they wound up drawing her on different Marvel comics. J. Scott Campbell did a bunch of drawings of her. And my article kind of reflected all these different books where she showed up. You look at it and say, that's Christy Marie from Comic-Con,
Wow.
as the ultimate Sif or whatever else.
Well, that's a great way for real life to find its way into a book.
See, I thought that was a really fascinating article for me because it was a fangirl who turned around and became, you know what I mean, this weird iconic thing in this event she used to go to. They also I did the cover story on The Alien and I, on Veronica Cartwright's memories on being in the movie Alien. You know,
wow.
Working with Ridley Scott, working with the Alien. You know, one of her great stories, Veronica Cartwright, her sister was Penny on the original Lost in Space.
Oh, okay.
But Veronica, you've seen in a ton of stuff. She's the last person eaten in the movie Alien. You know,
wow.
because the next one is Sigourney Weaver, and that ain't going to happen. People have been waiting for almost 40 years for Sigourney Weaver.
She could regenerate.
Yeah. And the other one is she was the little girl in The Birds. She plays the hero's little sister in The Birds. And that's her walking home from the schoolhouse in The Birds.
Amazing.
So, and she's also in the remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers with Jeff Goldblum.
Oh, wow.
So her stories are amazing. You know,
I could watch Jeff Goldblum in anything.
By the way, kind of exciting, huh?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I could watch Devorah Firestone in anything.
You are too kind.
I second that motion.
So where did you? What was the first college when you got out of high school? What did you do when you went to college to learn how to be this engineer or what?
Oh gosh, you know, I had been lucky enough to have my dad have kind of this computer systems house very early on in the computer world. So I kind of had my feet into doing programming DOS of all things. And
wow, DOS.
So it kind of allowed me to as the web world started to develop to step into that early. So it kind of doing design and development were things I learned out of books and got jobs from. And of course, at that time, the feds were the ones stepping up the quickest to make sure that they had their own websites. So they needed basically any warm body who was willing to do the work. So I basically stepped in and read as many books as it took to get my work done. And next thing I know, I'd been doing development for close to 8 years. And then I ran into this lovely lady named Mary Jean Smith, who's now at a company called Level Access. And she asked me, "Oh, are you interested in accessibility? It's great that you're a developer." And at that time, they were still calling them programmers. And I said, "Oh, of course." I had no idea what she was talking about. Didn't know that I had already done it the year before.
Smart enough to play along, though. You were smart enough to play along.
I was smart enough to play along. And then next thing I knew, I was working at a major accessibility company and learning all about it and sitting next to two wonderful blind guys who told the best jokes on earth.
That's good. You got to keep the humor going to get you know.
Devorah, to make the time pass faster.
Yes, I mean, cubicles, right?
She would replace their coffee mate with ketchup. Then the day that he burned his fingers on the waffle iron, that was still very mean of you, Dora. Wow, that's interesting. So
it's a fun, like I said, it's a fun sideline in that world, and it's a great thing to have. I mean, I think everyone, you know, that we talk to here in LA all have many skills. Everybody's got a little bit extra, like our friend here has the bass talent as well.
Yeah.
And
well, you haven't heard him play.
And of course, you're an encyclopedia, so that helps too.
Oh, shucks. Thank you, dear Linda. You know, but that's interesting. So you've been in LA 2.5 years. What was the biggest change from the Midwest you noticed?
Wow.
Besides not having a White Castle handy.
I started in the East, so I wasn't quite in the Midwest anymore. Mm-hmm. I would say that one thing that was going on in the East is that people were very affected by, by the overall political climate that seemed to be changing. There were a lot of gotcha games that the people in politics were playing against each other.
Right.
And there was also the Mad Men series was very popular. And that caused people to behave very differently at work. Where before you often were in a very supportive environment, it seems like people were now making a hobby of knocking each other off. So
ironic, isn't it? Life imitates art.
Yeah.
So after a while, I was kind of looking around and going, you know, it might be better for me to go to a more artistic place where maybe I could be more appreciated by the fact that I get my work done. I'm, reliable in a lot of ways, even if I'm a little strange. And, so I
We don't
figured-
say strange out here. We say eccentric.
eccentric, exotic.
And an
Interesting.
exotic blonde can be as eccentric as she wants. You can be eating a human foot at work. They'll be cool with it.
But so here I just found people a lot more accepting as I expected. It's just it became much nicer. And also I have to admit I just frequently felt like I was walking a tightrope there, and I really just wanted to be somewhere a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more spontaneous and interesting.
The coast is the most. I mean, well, like Jeff, you were born here. You don't realize how much better Southern California. No, you were born.
No, I was born in Wilmington,
You
Delaware.
were, but you moved out here when you were a baby, right?
The whole state of Delaware. I still get people saying, "Where are you from?" "Oh, I was born in Delaware." "What state is that in?" "Oh God, where'd you go to school?" I mean, just because
public school,
just because San Bernardino County is bigger than the state of Delaware, you know.
Me not know where Delaware is.
Well, I have to admit, the main thing that I know about Delaware is a guy named Caesar Rodney who got on his horse and rode many miles during the Revolution so that he could make the vote for independence.
It wasn't worth it.
So
Delaware is one of the forgotten flyovers.
so
That's where the DuPont factory is.
okay.
The DuPont. That's where
I-
DuPont Industries is, and it's still there today.
See, those fish aren't going to give themselves cancer unless DuPont was there.
ouch.
Yeah, my aunt worked there her whole lifetime. Of course, she's not here now. She's dead
she has
now.
3 arms.
And remember, their slogan was, "It's a world of things we're doing something about."
Yeah. Dr. Frankenstein said the same thing.
Yeah.
A world of things we're doing something about.
Yeah.
What do you feel that you're doing most about at this
I
time?
don't know. I just remember them DuPont making Teflon frying pans, and then we're finding out that Teflon's not good for us anymore.
But don't worry, they dumped the rest of it into the ocean.
Yeah.
Have some Teflon fish.
Yeah.
Teflon fish.
So what the hell was Happily Never After?
Oh, Happily Never After was the story of an middle-aged lady in the 80s who married badly and who came upon her demise.
Really? Wow.
Was this filmed in Virginia?
Yes, that was also filmed in Virginia, and I played one of the friends.
Oh.
So
Okay, Justin Haynes, that's my nephew. He's never on Facebook.
Hi,
Okay,
Justin.
Justin, check this out. He thought I was born on Catalina. No, Justin, your mother. Your mother was born on Catalina Island.
Your grandmother, Justin, will probably tell you the famous story and how her water broke with Jeff on the way to her abortion.
God, you're Mr.
said-
Verbally Abusive.
She said, I'm keeping it. I'm going to call it Jeffrey.
My nephew, he grew up with computers. He does like 150 words per minute.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Like a machine gun, man.
But it's
Amazing.
all on Pornhub.
But in the 90s, yeah, he used to have a thing called
Pornhub.
it was shut the hell up. He did a thing when he was in high school with computers and editing, and he had this little group before Jackass. It was called DWAC, Dudes with a Camera.
Oh, no.
cute.
And you know, they would do animation like sitting on the ground like you're driving a car and going down the road. And,
Wait, I want to hear the sound your car makes again. Apparently, Jeff's car is a riding lawnmower.
all right. Okay, enough of you, Justin. Back to Devorah before I
Yeah, shut up, Justin. We got a blonde right here. All right, amuse us, Earth Woman. Tell us more.
This movie you were filming how did that happen? How did you end up doing movies? in
Actually,
Virginia?
before that, the first thing you did in 2004, Military Wife Uncredited, was directed by
Something the Lord made.
Yeah, something the Lord made, but it was directed by Joe Sargent.
Oh, yes.
Joe Sargent was a famous TV director. He also directed the last and the least of the Jaws movies. Jaws: The Revenge. He directed for Twilight Zone. He directed for Star Trek. I believe he did the one with Clint Howard. You know.
Yeah.
Well, I wish I could say I remember him, but unfortunately I don't. I do remember Alan Rickman and Kira Sedgwick.
Tell us about them.
So
Denise.
I did have 2 scenes that were very close to both of them, and it was quite fun. Kira Sedgwick stayed in character the entire time. So,
Really? Which is weird because she was playing Hitler. Sorry, John.
But she was adorable, and she had that lovely Southern accent, and she talked to me and my military husband the whole time in complete character. And then she went.
Did you salute her or thank her for her fake service?
The camera was off, she would get really quiet, get in this big coat because it was cold in this mansion in Baltimore, and then
Baltimore, Maryland mansion.
Yes,
wow.
And then she would go sit next to the jazz musicians, or she would sit next to the table guys, the waiters.
Really?
Yes, she would sit next to them and wait for her cue again.
Like a man, like a true woman of the people. Interesting.
But Alan Rickman, there's a great story with that.
Please.
I was the last person to do a fitting for this 1940s based movie. So while lots of other women got these amazing dresses that I was absolutely worshiping, I got a pink one with like Christmas trees on it.
Oh. Military wife without any money.
And I got shoes that were a size and a half too small. So I was putting them on, and my feet were changing color the longer I was on the set.
Oh, man.
And
you didn't want to complain because you didn't want to get replaced.
Oh, yeah, I'm doing my best not to complain. But the fact is, I was put into the shot because my dress was so awful, and they were sure I would not distract from anyone else.
Wow.
So it was actually strategy.
Nice.
And I didn't know it. But so I learned. But the other thing that was really funny was that my feet were changing color, and my friend was trying to keep me active in this dance scene and keep everything good. And finally we stopped, and I was just, looking at the ground going, this really sucks, but trying not to say anything.
Right.
And Alan Rickman, of course, is looking at me, and he notices, and he's going, wait, your feet are purple. Wow. And he says, take them off. And I'm looking around and going, uh-oh, I could get in trouble for taking these off.
Foot massage.
And the AD says to me, Alan Rickman told you to take your shoes off. You'd better do it.
Wow. By the way, when Hans Gruber gives you an order.
There's nothing worse than being on set and wardrobe and having shoes that don't fit or hurt. Oh, it's painful.
Well, that's not something I ever thought I would complain about. I'm one of those rare women who owns like 3 pairs of shoes, and it just wouldn't occur to me to even think about it. Wow. But because I did this 1940s fitting, I was down to these ridiculous things that were probably going to break up in a few minutes if I'd worn them any longer.
I remember when I did extra work, after getting your SAG card, my brother Donald and I were doing this movie. And the producer goes, or the first AD goes, anybody with this shoe size, raise your hand. And everyone knew not to do it, My brother goes, I've got that shoe size. Give me your boots and go hang out and hold it.
No.
Ouch.
So it's like, you never damn volunteer, okay?
So you probably had the biggest foot size there,
right.
but you just kept your mouth shut.
And that's what you do. You keep your mouth shut.
I did see a similar thing on set once, and it was kind of funny, and I hope we don't get into trouble for saying this, but
no, not at all.
A certain actor who happened to have been Mark Wahlberg, it seems is bow-legged. And he was in a particular movie that was filming in D.C., and one of my friends was going to have his first day player role there.
Oh, no.
And he was also bow-legged. And
God.
It seems that they needed a stand-in, so he became a stand-in instead of a day player because he was also bow-legged and roughly the same height.
I never noticed. I mean, because he always wearing baggy. Is that why he always wears baggy pants when he's?
It must be.
That must be what it is.
I've interviewed him, and he's actually pretty cool. I was shocked how cool he was. You know what I mean? And it turned out he knew some of my friend's parents, my friend Bob's parents. And I mentioned during the interview, I mentioned them, and he got very excited. And I thought, what a decent cat.
So 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, well, no. Instead, it's 4 degrees of Mark Wahlberg. You were 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon when you were standing by Kyra Sedgwick.
No, I was 1 degree from Kevin Bacon.
Did he come to the? Yeah, you were exactly. Once you're with the mother of children, you've been near, and they put you in the same frame as Kyra Sedgwick, put you in a neighborhood heavily frequented by Kevin Bacon. You could have tagged his ear and waited for him to return. Wow.
So we'll tag his ear until he does the dance again?
So did you wear this dress through the whole...
The Christmas tree dress?
How many days was it? Was it a one-day filming, or how many days did you work on that film?
Oh, I was on for 3 days. I believe I wore that dress for 2 days, and they promptly lost the shoes after 2 days. So the third day I got lucky, and I guess some people had left, so there were other shoes available to me. But then, of course, I discovered the new scene I'm sitting down. So
So you didn't break up the continuity. Somebody's going to say, hey, she's wearing different shoes and different colored feet. From purple to flesh.
By the way, that director, Joe Sargent, I talked to him.
Oh, Joe Sargent? Is he related to me?
No. He's a real professional.
Oh, well that's not going to have any difference with the DNA.
Sadly, he's not related to Dick Sargent either.
Oh, okay.
Which is what people call you behind your back.
Yeah, we're going to find out who these people are.
We will. We'll track them all down.
Are you my daddy? Oh, my uncle?
We already described the sad ordeal of Jeff's birth.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly though, Joe Sargent had done Twilight Zone, had done Star Trek. I talked to him. He lived in the Malibu colony, not far from where. Not far. We had Phil Hartman's brother, Paul, on the other day.
Oh yeah, yes.
And he lived in the Malibu colony as well. Joe Sargent lived in the Malibu colony on the same street as Leo Penn.
Oh wow!
You know, and he was always going sailing and stuff every time I tried to get an interview with him. But
of course.
Oh yeah, but he'd call back and go. He would straighten out. He'd try to block an area, and then he was always doing something, and then he dropped dead on me.
Oh man!
But he directed the second episode of Star Trek, which I thought was kind of cool. The second ongoing Captain Kirk episode. You know, the Corporate Maneuver.
So you did you finish your interview? I mean,
got a couple of quotes on Jaws out of him. Never got my Star Trek interview with him. You know what I mean? And I mean, to his credit, he was always he's in Malibu. There's more important things to do than talk about your zillion-year-old episode of Star Trek with Clint Howard Jr. or Clint Howard. Are you excited about Solo? You're a sci-fi nerd being an engineer. Are you going to see the new Han Solo movie?
You know, I kind of feel like I have to because
Morally
I've been watching
obligated?
Game of Thrones for so many years, and Emilia Clarke is in it.
Oh.
So I kind of feel like I have to go watch just to see what else she can do.
So it's like jury duty.
Sort of.
You want to see what Emilia Clarke looks like with her clothes on.
I think you were paying attention quite a bit to whether she had her clothes on or not. I'm afraid I was not.
How dare you? That's the main reason people watch the early seasons of Game of Thrones before they all got too rich to do their own nude scenes.
Well, trust me, Jason Momoa was on somebody's list.
Yeah.
Excuse me, woman, you're talking about Aquaman.
That's Aquaman.
That is Aquaman.
Oh, wait. If we're going into DC, what does everyone think about Justice League?
All right.
Like it.
You know what? Yeah, we liked it a lot. And everyone attacked it everyone attacked Justice League. I thought it was great. And
Really?
Jeff thought it was great. You didn't like it? And we're Marvel guys, but it was a great movie.
It had moments where it just wasn't moving quite fast enough. But beyond that, honestly, I enjoyed it.
Thank you. See, you hear that?
The costuming was great.
Yeah.
Pat and I, we do a thing. We do our rounds at Toys R Us, and that's going under. Now's our time to get our 40% off. But
Yeah,
we will
50 now.
We got time. We'll say, hey, let's shoot up, and we'll get our action figures because we collect all the superhero stuff from the movies. You know.
Don't tell too much of our secrets.
Yes. Yes, we have the whole Justice League collection at home. Yes.
We talk to them. They talk back.
What do you say to Batman?
I say, move, you're blocking the toothbrush. But I think that Jeff turned me on to it. The Ben Affleck burned out, cynical a-hole Batman is wonderful, don't you think?
Oh, I live for Batman. The
Personality and behavior is correct.
The fact is, his true superpower is that he is freaking crazy.
But the movie, that's
he's batshit crazy.
There you go.
I can relate to that.
My favorite, it has to be a Joss Whedon line where Aquaman says, or one of them say to Batman, "What's your power?" And he goes, "I'm rich."
I'm rich. Yeah. I went and saw Deadpool I beat you, Pat.
Oh, you saw Deadpool
$6.50 on a Sunday night. It was at the Regent Theater in Huntington Beach.
Wow.
Wow, you have to go that far to see a movie for $6.50.
No, I'm working in the
we
air.
are.
I went there after work.
He was actually
right down the street.
He's sculpting the golden penis for the AVN award.
I think they just had that. I saw the billboard off the freeway.
Did the silver even dry?
Oh boy. Now let's get back to
Did
this
you
young
like
lady
Justice
here.
League?
Oh, I did very much, yes.
Okay, good girl. What's the last superhero movie you saw and liked? Infinity War. What'd you think?
Oh, it was Infinity War was the actual last one I saw.
Same plot as Justice League. Giant alien comes down from space to destroy the world.
And yeah, it fits quite a few stories that are like that. And wow. You know, on one hand, they really pulled it off as far as making a story that I could believe. The other thing, of course, as a comic book babe of the 80s and 90s.
A Secret Wars girl.
But also, I also knew a lot about, older stuff like when Captain America became the Nomad after the Hawaii
Wow, after his disillusionment, yeah.
So I was just super excited to see him looking just like Nomad. And I kept pointing at the screen and saying Nomad, and nobody knew what I meant.
You're in a safe harbor here, woman. We know exactly who the Nomad is. Wow.
But no, I loved most of it.
What didn't you like?
The only... I agreed with the Wakandan lady who said, "Why wasn't Scarlet Witch out here sooner?"
Wow! By the way, she's right.
I mean, you got a big gun like that. What the hell are you doing?
Why are you waiting to the third act? Because if she was in it earlier, she could have stopped with her. You would have another 2.5 movie.
You wouldn't have needed Thor. He would have come in late, and everyone would have been like, boring. What are you doing here now?
Right. There's another 2.5 hour movie coming that we're going to need. Scarlet Witch would have prevented the franchise from continuing.
But I have to admit Chris Hemsworth was great with the Thor jokes. He was great with the whole you've stolen my beard.
Oh yeah. Rocky Raccoon and Thor I thought were pretty fun together.
I didn't like that. I wanted Captain America. Go shave your face and put your mask on. I mean, if you're a superhero, wear your mask, wear your helmet. You know?
Excuse me.
But I have to admit, I really wanted Rocket to get at least a little bit angry at being called a rabbit like 5 times.
Yeah. But you're not going to argue with Thor, man.
Someone should argue with Thor.
It was interesting to me that it was so big, and yet you know everything was crystal clear where you were in the plot. I got to give the Russo brothers credit, and Stephen McFeely, who wrote it. I mean, you could follow it as thick as it got, and you never got lost in the weeds, you know?
No, that's true. I love the pacing, and I love the fact that it seemed like everybody got just enough that you felt like, there was a reason for people to be there.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, I've heard just enough from Bucky / Winter Soldier / what were they?
Right, yeah, exactly.
And just enough to feel like he was there and that he might have a future just long enough to possibly come back from becoming dust.
Yeah, exactly.
And I really just enjoyed it. I love the Iron Spider stuff. I love the Alien reference, and funny because we mentioned Alien earlier.
Right, there you go.
And of course Iron Man saying, "Hey, no more '80s references."
Yeah.
So I wondered what he meant. Like, was there something he was afraid was going to happen to him?
I think because he's a product of the 80s. I think he's the reason Aunt May is so hot, by the way, because he used to date Aunt May in real life. You know what I mean?
Go. They bopped in college. Neither remember it.
Wait, Aunt May changed how many times?
Well, the first Aunt May in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man from 2002.
That was Sally Field, right?
No, Sally Field's the second Aunt May. That was Rosemary Forsyth, I think her name is, who played...
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the older lady.
Yeah, I thought she was perfect. Then with the Lee Romita Aunt
And then she got younger and younger.
Yeah, then it was Sally Field, who I didn't really care for.
No.
It's funny because I love her, but I didn't love her in that.
Yeah, she just... That
I'm
was
looking
a
at her
paycheck.
like the flying nun being an aunt. No.
I think she was in it for a paycheck.
It's just like I thought the second Storm was far better than the first Storm. And I'm sorry, I do like me some Halle Berry, but that was just not her role.
No. You like the animated Storm better, I'm guessing.
I like the animated Storm, and I definitely liked the more X-Men Apocalypse Storm. She definitely had some possibilities. I'm told they're going to recast again, so it'll be interesting to see who they come up with. But since they have like a better roadmap as to what she's actually supposed to be like, I'm optimistic.
Oh, good girl. Okay, the road remains open for you.
Exactly, but for a lot of women, that's a favorite, early Marvel character. I mean, I guess she's mid-level. She's not really super early.
But Storm is Chris Claremont, and considered one of the best writers in the history of Marvel, and he's certainly the best female writer at Marvel.
Do you think she's hard to cast for a specific reason?
I do, because I don't think Barry. I don't think Barry was really the tough leader that Storm was in the comics and the cartoon and all that. I think they cast her because she was a name.
Oh, definitely. I believe
Oh yeah.
But I always saw Storm as being more like Angela. What's her name from What's Left Out to Do
Angela
It? Yeah, Angela Bassett. Thank you. Yeah. She Storm is stronger than that. I think Barry was cast because she was a name.
Right.
But, you know, she wasn't particularly Storm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The Chris Claremont Storm.
And then I think the third installment of that, they tried to sort of change the Storm character to better match her, and that just created a train wreck.
And she realized smartly as an actress, if I'm not Wolverine's girlfriend, I'm not that central to the plot. So in the Brett Ratner one, suddenly she's also Wolverine's other girlfriend.
How many girlfriends does he need?
Yeah, well, he's
He
supposed
doesn't
to be,
have time. He's too angry.
he's supposed to be pining for Jean Grey. Everyone knows that. And suddenly Halle Berry obviously complained because she's the girlfriend, sort of. You know what I mean?
No,
Inside the
I
weeds.
think she was supposed to meet Forge and have a horrible breakdown after all that didn't work out. I mean, that would have been great.
Wow, that's true. That's interesting.
So I'm showing my comic book knowledge by pointing out Forge, who was a cybernetic telepath who eventually got killed.
You're talking about the Thor robot from Civil War, right?
Right.
Ragnarok. That's his name. And remember, he had in the comics during Civil War, you had to kill a character to show you're serious. So they reached back into like 70s Marvel, and he kills Black Goliath. You know, he was like a secondary character, but he throws his cybernetic hammer through his midsection. Oh. That way you could arguably argue that somebody important died in Civil War. It was an actual character who had his own book, even though he hadn't had his own book in like 30 years.
Well, I have to admit, I really kind of wanted for at least a short period of time for maybe, you know, Rhodes to change into Iron Man and then become War Machine. I kind of wanted them to do that in the film.
You can't take Downey off. Downey's the money.
So when was it when Tony Stark became alcoholic?
Well, I just thought
yeah, 70s and 80s.
Well, I just thought that was a great period in the comics when Tony Stark was just losing it.
David McLeany is the creator of Venom. He's the one who made Venom the symbiote. You know what I mean? And
I always love Venom.
Wow, did you really?
So what do you think about Tom Hardy being Venom?
Oh, big improvement. Big improvement. Yeah. I mean, honestly, really, everything about the newer Venom is an improvement over the older Venom.
Wow, yeah, I would agree with you. You know, it looks cool.
Of course, I admit I also liked Tom Hardy recently in the Peaky Blinders.
Oh.
Have you guys seen that?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, it's sort of like Boardwalk Empire and what is that? There's another one that's it's based on the British adventures of things that happened on I'm forgetting the names, but anyway, it was kind of that sort of early 1900 stuff around Jack the Ripper time, that kind of thing.
Really?
So the Peaky Blinders is slightly newer in time than that, but still around the whole speakeasy era. So they're all getting into a lot of trouble in Ireland and in Scotland, and especially Scotland, and they've got Cillian Murphy in that. And,
the Scarecrow.
Right. And so that's looks like a really amazing show, and Tom Hardy was recently in that for a couple of years, and then they recently killed him off. So I'm glad they gave him something else to do. And
Peaky Blinders, interesting.
Because they should keep that guy busy. Yes, Peaky Blinders was the name of this gang, and what the peak was actually this hat. Like one of those little like. I
thought it was like a Goofy Woman show. I didn't watch it for that reason.
Right, it was the gang name, and because this was like.
You're making this sound more interesting than it probably is.
And they oh no, they're far more interesting.
Wow.
This hat. What happens is that a lot of people didn't have guns, so they had this hat, and they would have razor blades fit into the bill.
Really?
And so when they wanted to attack other people, they'd take their hat off and slash people with it, and they'd try to blind them with it. So that was the Peaky Blinders.
This sounds kick-ass, actually.
Damn, that's dangerous.
Yeah.
So it's fairly violent and fairly fun, and they had a lot of good, just amazing actors. I mean, it really has been a great series, and it's got about, I think, 5 seasons so far, and they're going for a 6th, definitely.
Interesting.
So good time on your Netflix if you ever have. the
Yeah,
urge.
no, you're talking me.
But meanwhile, here I am talking about all that, and
Let's talk about you.
Yes,
some of my own projects.
I want to know about. Let's talk about Wicked Attraction. Where
no.
now, where was that film?
No, that's the stalker thing where you fired the girl, right?
Yes.
I was
was it
thinking.
filmed in a real prison or what?
Unlike my show's namesake,
No, it was filmed in a nice dark closet.
unlike my show's namesake, I pay attention.
But
We covered that,
the
smartass.
biggest, the coolest thing right now is that I'm doing a project called 101 on the 405. So it'll be based on me driving around in my Porsche 944 and getting into trouble with all the awesome people in LA.
Really?
I don't
101 on the 405, is that named after the coffee shop on Franklin? Seriously.
It's possible because my my coach / director used to live here, and
He's an acting coach.
Yes.
What's his name? Was he an actor?
His name is Stephen Mitchell, and he's been in different areas of the industry. He's been director, producer, probably even actor at some point. But he's currently living in Ireland, and he's been coaching us from afar and also directing us from afar.
Wow.
So we're making stuff here, and wow, we got to get you guys in it.
Of course, we'd be honored.
Of course, yes.
So I think this would be great fun. We'd bring you in it, and my character can get into trouble, and you guys can be trouble, and
We would be honored. If you need creeps, we give good creep.
But the fun part about what Steven does is that he writes things on the spot. So he meets you, and he learns your type, and then he'll write a scene to match you.
Really?
So character-driven things generally tend to win. So if you start
Smart.
with some good characters, then you can move on to something.
Well,
good.
we don't lack character around here, do we, Patrick?
No, dear friend, we do not.
So that would be an honor if you guys would at least consider the possibility.
You came out here for our show, baby. We're on.
Possibilities.
But yeah, it's he has a repertory company that's based both in LA and DC, and he has his students work these things out, and when we get it right, then we're ready to have films. And in my case, I'm doing well, so we're doing a feature for me based on me driving around in my Porsche.
We're in. We will support this 100%.
He's not
thank you.
he's not the Stephen Mitchell who wrote the classic movie Chopping Mall, is he?
I don't know.
Find out. If he wrote Chopping
find
Mall, I
out.
need to talk to
Yeah?
him. Yeah, take a look. Is that him?
Maybe I can identify it.
Did he do King Cohen, the Larry Cohen documentary?
That may not be him. He did do something about Ferraris, though. He did this really great documentary about Ferraris. He used to sell them. And, you put Steve Mitchell, it's Steven.
Oh, wow.
So,
Why don't you fix that? If his resume is less impressive, I'm going to complain.
Let the engineer run your phone, Pat.
but he also used to distribute films that he created in the 80s that eventually got to other countries. So,
Now, see, that intrigues me. I'd like to know more about that.
I definitely think that if you asked him nicely if he would be interviewed, he might go for it.
How often does he come out here?
I'm not sure. His son lives here, and so I know he comes. But I have not yet seen him here. I did see him when I was in D.C. But he has a place in Paris, and he is currently living in Ireland with his sweetheart.
Oh.
And is still having a great time with his awesome cars, which is kind of fun.
Does he drive a Ferrari? Does just make documentaries about them?
No, he drives a Ferrari.
Wow.
You're kidding. This man owns
Oh,
one.
yeah.
He probably owns more than one. I just don't know it.
Have you ever ridden in a Ferrari?
Yes.
We haven't.
I
don't know if we can
I don't think it would fit
Patrick
me.
in a Ferrari.
Here we go. I can barely fit in my car.
In college,
Which is not a Ferrari.
in college, I was dating a guy who owned a Testarossa, basically because his father felt guilty that his parents got a divorce, and
Oh my God! Why can't that happen to us?
why can't it happen to anyone?
Yeah, there you go.
I can tell you that was a memorable car, truly.
Yeah, that's
What did you miss more, the guy
dangerously
or the car?
fast.
What did you miss more, the guy or the car?
The car.
No, definitely the guy.
Oh,
Definitely the guy.
you're a romantic.
I don't know the guy, but I missed the car.
Okay, this is probably him. Wee Jimmy. Did he just think, oh, Wee Jimmy?
I don't think so. Let me try again. It may be easier to look up me and then look up him.
Had a girl.
Because unfortunately, Stephen Mitchell is an extremely common name.
And totally common.
Yeah, isn't it hair care products?
So in some ways, there was kind of an advantage to me actually having a real name that is not usual.
Devorah Firestone is a great name. I was sure it was a fake name. Is that your real name?
It is indeed my real name.
Wow, Firestone too?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, it comes from immigrants who decided to change their name so that people would not discriminate.
So it's not like a porn star thing where it's the street you grew up on and your first dog.
Gorgeous ladies of wrestling, Devorah Firestone.
As an MMA type, I appreciate that.
You're an MMA girl. Who was your first WWE? Which one were you a fan of as a little girl?
Oh, no. There was no WWE and MMA.
Wow. Oh, you're mixed martial arts. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I thought you were talking like Junkyard Dog and all that.
I'm a big fan of Yale Romero and Luke Rockhold, in part because I met Luke Rockhold, and in part because...
Was he the Ferrari driver?
No, he was
Did he park a Firestone somewhere near here?
Wow.
Thank you.
No, actually, in his case, I met him. He was with Taylor Swift at the time. So
wow.
I would say he has a radically different type than me, but all I can say is it's his loss.
Both blondes, I would add.
But he was kind enough to tell me all about how he had overcome getting 2 broken ACLs in the same fight. And
who was he fighting? Superman?
I don't actually remember. It may well have been Yale Romero, and I'm not sure. But
in that case, whose loyalty would you be on, him or Yo?
I'd probably go with Yale because he's just so much more interesting.
Wow.
That sounds so bad, but the fact is they're both pretty cool. They're both pretty interesting to talk to and interesting to watch. The thing about MMA is that as somebody who grew up doing martial arts and it being considered a very unladylike thing to do it. It was pretty interesting to me to start seeing what women could do. So to watch someone like Holly Holm, who, was a known boxer for 17 years before she moved into MMA, she came in and did this amazing kick and, took out Ronda Rousey. And she became very famous for that.
Laid her out. I mean, beat her face in,
Oh, she really did. And, a lot of that was the whole styles make fights concept. She actually knew how to counter strike, and that was a big deal. But the thing that really got me about her was I'd watched her in an earlier fight, and I'd watched her endurance level, and I watched how quickly she moved around the ring. But the most important thing to me as a woman, understanding what kind of capabilities I would have in a real-life fight, was seeing Holly Holm pick up another woman and carry her and throw her down after 15 straight minutes of fighting.
Wow. She still had that strength.
Right, and I mean, they're both 135 pounds. I mean, that's the rules of the fight.
That's a lot of power.
So Rousey had no...
But still, that's quite a lot of strength to be facing in one person if they can throw somebody down after whatever.
After 15 minutes of solid combat. And the interesting thing about Rousey is literally, she's the second one, right? Because there was the first fighter who literally beat her face in. And then on her second fight of solidly being beaten, Rousey just quit, right?
Well, I believe that Rousey was undefeated for 12 fights by that time, and a lot of people thought that she was unbeatable. But, anytime you have a champion, unfortunately, just to kind of raise their star, you always have a certain amount of paint cans? Coke cans? Whatever they call them. Whatever they are, they're a little bit on the weak side compared to what a champion would be. And unfortunately, there's a slight difference in the experience level of the women versus the men over time. So what you've got is a situation where probably 10 of the top 15 women all have day jobs. But if you look at the men, probably maybe only 2 or 3 out of the top 15 have day jobs.
Wow.
So you've got a big difference in the time to develop the kinds of skills you need to really do a good job. But I have to admit, at the moment, I think the female straw rates are looking great. They're really moving very fast, which is fun to watch. And the current champion, Rose Namajunas, is really interesting because she's kind of through with the trash talk, but she's actually interesting and fun and cool to watch. And she really did a great job of taking out the last champion, who I believe was around 10 times undefeated. Her name was Joanna Jędrzejczyk. And she was also just fast and furious and great fun to watch. And I can't wait to see her fight again just because she's so fast.
Wow.
So, that's MMA.
Interesting. Wow. Look at you.
She should have met Cyrene. We had a female fighter in here, cage fighter, Cyrene.
Oh, and
Cyrene Salvo. She's
in Pomona.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Has a lot of her bouts are in Long Beach, but
what league does she fight for?
It was shame on us. We've had her here twice.
You've been here twice, and we're failing to come up with.
Bellator or Invicta? Was it MMA?
It might be Invicta.
Okay. Yeah. It definitely means that she'll be showing promise in the future, very likely.
And she has her own nose, which is always a good sign for a female fighter.
Yeah, I think there are two things that tell you that a fighter is really good. One is having her own nose. The second is having his or her own ears.
Yeah.
If the ears are boxed up, then you've got an issue.
When you're getting black eyes on every fight, that's not good.
I would do red carpet at the Spike Awards, and when there was a Spike channel, and the guy Randy something from the Expendables, the wrestler from the Expendables.
Oh, Randy Couture.
Randy Couture came in. And he had ears like a pit bull. I mean, they were the biggest cauliflower ears you've ever seen. But there was one, it was almost scientific how bent it was. You just found yourself, and he's making eye contact on the carpet. So you're trying to make eye contact and you just, geez, what's the deal with that ear?
You're a little bit distracted. It's like there's a planet growing from it.
Are you looking at my ear?
Yeah.
No, Randy.
You can see why he started wearing a Kangol hat covering the tip of the ear. Because it looked like a Doberman, and it looked like a tray of fudge the way it was flipping over.
A tray of fudge.
And I mean,
ouch.
I'm looking at that ear, and by the third red carpet I did with him on it, the Guy's Choice Awards, by the third one he was wearing his Kangol. Yeah, now of all times. But the Kangol hat was covering the tip of the ear, and I thought, thank God, because it's like a solar flare. You can't stop staring at it.
That's why I never noticed it, Pat. Yeah. I've always seen him with a hat on.
And what's weird is the Spike Awards, Captain Morgan and the Captain Morgan beautiful pirates would be on these female pirates would be on the red carpet. So you're drinking, they would be feeding you shots of Captain Morgan. Then they're putting you in front of celebrities because they're trying to get you drunk enough that you ask stupid questions. Luckily, my body mass index is bigger than the usual E-channel girl.
Good job.
Thank you. But that was the one where my Becky, my photographer, and I watched. That's where Marilyn Manson tripped on he was wearing giant lifts.
Oh no!
And
like those Gene Simmons type.
Yeah, he had big Gene Simmons type dragon boots. He had a pimp stick, and he was drinking absinthe, it looked like, and he tripped on the red carpet.
Oh, goodness.
And everybody started laughing.
With boots, he's taller than you are.
You tried to be. But he fell right in front of us, and it was his luck. It was print journalists. Because if he fell like 2 feet sooner, he would have fallen in front of all the cameras.
Oh, no.
And somebody said, I won't say who, but somebody said, it's like the 90s died before my eyes. And he got up and he flipped us all off and he ran down the red carpet. It was hilarious. It was like he's running home to mama, you know? He's like, oh, well, that happened.
I mean, everyone has an embarrassing moment in life. So what would be yours?
Yeah. His occurred, by the way, with the recent death of Margot Kidder, I kept thinking about that, what you just said. I did a great interview with Margot Kidder, you know, and we were laughing. She was telling great stories.
Oh, for those who don't know, she used to be Lois Lane.
She was Lois Lane, and more importantly, she was the first Lois Lane to bare her breasts in the Amityville Horror.
Oh, my goodness.
You were never an 11-year-old boy with cable. So what happened is, when we're doing the interview, you know, we talked about Lois Lane, Amityville Horror. More importantly, that she would throw beach parties where Steven Spielberg met Martin Scorsese for the first time and Brian De Palma. She brought the East Coast filmmakers and the West Coast filmmakers together.
Oh, cool.
She should have had a lot more great roles because of that. You know what I mean? I mean, she was incredibly cool. But it was like doing an interview with a train you knew was going to run out of track.
Oh, goodness.
I'm thinking, as great as the interview was, we're laughing it up, and I'm thinking she's giving me great material. But I also felt bad because I knew if I was going to be true to the interview, I could do a total. I could do a total celebrity service with Margot and never mention it.
Right.
But if I was going to be honest and do it for the reader as well, I felt even if it got a rude answer from her, when she was well in her right if she wanted to give one, I knew I'd have to ask her about the breakdown because everyone reading the article is going to ask, boy, when does she talk about the breakdown? And I said, hey, Margot, I'm sorry, but I have to ask you about this. And, you can tell me to go to hell. She goes, no, darling. And she goes, think of this is how she phrased it, in the same way you just put it. She said, think of the most embarrassing thing you ever did, the most shameful, embarrassing thing you ever did. And she goes, and you do it in public. And she goes, that was my breakdown. She goes, I'd lived with it for years. And she goes, and at this point, she goes, I had the most embarrassing moment I've ever had in public. My teeth were out, all this, I looked like disheveled, and she said, once that happens, there was something freeing about it. And she was more than happy. She said, I don't know if it's true, but she goes, I'm more than happy to talk about it. Because she goes, I own it. Once it happened to you and you own it, nobody can attack you on anything.
Well, I can tell you that's really brave and it's admirable to be able to say that because I know that some of us just, block our worst experiences out of our mind. This
never happened.
We're like, I can't think of that. I can't recall. What does that mean?
Yeah.
So, it's just, I was always impressed with her ability to speak frankly about things that were not comfortable because so many people are like, they put things before the interview. Oh, you can't talk about this. You can't talk about that.
I try never to do that.
Or someone will even get up and leave.
And you always run that risk. I mean, when you do an interview and you're talking about that sort of thing, you run the risk. And I mean, I've had to interview like drunk celebrities and stuff, but I've never had anyone walk out. And I've always been, but I never do the preconditions because once you do preconditions, it's not an interview, it's a press kit.
Right.
And I'm doing publicity. I'm going to make a hell of a lot more money on this.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, it's not my job to do the publicist's job.
Right.
My service, my service, in my opinion, is to my reader, not even to the editor. It's to the reader. The person who is going to read this article is going to want this, this, and this. You know what I mean? I mean, if I don't talk about this and this, and I skip that just because whatever,
right.
I'm not doing anybody any favors.
Well, it's true. I guess I do wonder, though, there are times where, something is just insanely personal and it just happened. And, of course, the show must go on. And, everyone's trying to be a good, team player with their situation. And if they've got a project that's breaking and they have to go out, it's like, okay, how do you balance that? How can you be both considerate and, true to that?
Yeah, that was my problem with Margot that because Margot originally didn't want to do an interview. And then when she realized I'd seen and read Easy Riders Raging Bulls, she goes, I thought we were just going to recap the Superman crap. She goes, and she was so excited I knew my stuff. She goes, turn on your tape recorder, darling. We're doing an interview. And I thought that was great. You know what I mean? And most of the interview questions were off the top of my head.
Right.
But I knew, even if I got to go to hell, I knew I was going to have to ask her about the breakdown.
Right.
Because
and I should point out that at that time it was far more embarrassing than it would be now.
Yes, yeah. And now that everyone's coming out, yeah.
Pretty much everybody has come out to say, look, many of us have had,
health disorders,
mental issues, and that those things are natural. I mean, things happen in your personal life. Things happen in your world, and sometimes you feel like the whole thing is coming down. And, when that happens, that's when you become who you are. That's when you crawl out of that, that's when you become better. Yeah,
and she'd had a rough life. And, I mean, the terrible thing is the bipolar stuff, and if you read a lot of her interviews, she was always very candid. But I think it was the bipolar where she was wildly oversharing. I mean, she talked about who she was sleeping with and this and that. And with me, I could care less about the celebrity coupling type stuff. I'm more interested in the work. But with the nervous breakdown, you had to ask her about it because that was everything. You know what I mean?
You know, I think as far as people with the same sorts of issues, you know, Carrie Fisher, that certainly made her.
And she made that very blunt and honest in her books, too, you know?
It certainly made her one of the most interesting people to talk to.
She dealt with it. What's amazing with Fisher, and I know her brother Todd a little bit, and he's a very cool cat. And but with Fisher, I never interviewed her. I met her a couple times, but what impressed me with her is that when you read like Wishful Drinking, and even the last one she wrote, The Princess Diarist. Did you read that?
I've only started it.
Oh, well, you're in for it. What's weird is I got a library copy, and my sister was like a Star Wars nut as a little girl, so I got her the book. And when I mailed it to her at Christmas, Carrie Fisher was alive, and by the time it was under my sister's Christmas tree, family's Christmas tree, she was dead.
Oh, wow.
You know, and it's the book everyone wanted her to write.
Yeah.
And she finally wrote it for the 40th anniversary. And I think she knew it would be a bridge burner. She writes it like a young adult novel. It's a first-person young adult novel. She was 19 when she did Star Wars. And supposedly it's her diary from when she was 19. And she hooks up with Harrison Ford. So he's like it's like a young adult novel where the nerdy, formerly fat girl starts dating the jock, the quarterback. And the quarterback is kind of callous, you know.
Well, at least by that point, we can say that there was probably less harm being done in theory because Harrison Ford had already moved on with Callista Flockhart. Very likely, Harrison Ford's ex had already moved on. So
I danced with Callista Flockhart on one of the last McBeals, Ally McBeals, and
she's really tiny.
She was strikingly beautiful. I had flop sweat. I just thinking about her because I stopped for gas. It was shot in the old TRW building where Marvel later took over.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty neat.
And the joke, of course, the horrible joke is that they shoot me. I'm so tall and she's so tiny. They shoot her. Her head came to my rib cage. And so you see her at the wall she's pressing against in the dance is my chest. They cut my head off, which I thought was dirty. But I understood it. It was my favorite ugly sweater. There's always an ugly sweater that's really comfortable.
Okay.
And this kid goes, Mr. J, my mom and I were watching Ally McBeal, and I wanted to hug the kid. He goes, Mr. J, I saw your sweater on Ally McBeal. That's you, and your hand was on her back. That's your hand, Mr. J. And yeah, it was. But you didn't get, nothing makes you nervous. But when I stopped for gas on my way to the David E. Kelly studios, I stopped at, it was one of those 7-Eleven gas stations. She was on the cover of every single magazine.
Wow.
Except Time and Newsweek. And even one of them, she was in the corner. And then, you know, she walks in, hi, I'm Callista. And it's like, the only time I got nervous. You know what I mean? And then, of course, then you got to not be nervous because you don't want to sweat on Ally McBeal. But she was adorable. Harrison Ford's a very lucky man. And you notice the ratings dropped on Supergirl as soon as she left. Yeah, there you go.
Well, I guess that's true. Is that a lot of those things are magic in how you connect different audiences to come together and create a hit. I mean that is a thought out thing that people do. And on one hand, I like it, but on the other hand, part of me says just do the art and stuff will come back out.
Yeah, put it out there.
But luckily, with someone like her, she's so skilled, you just don't have to worry. You put her in it and she does it. Yeah,
it's fascinating because you're looking, she has eyes like a Disney princess, basically. You know what I mean? It was like working with Bambi. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just this dumb dance, and it's like you know. And I knew they were going to cut my head off. They didn't tell me, but I knew. I thought there's no way they can do a 2-shot with me and her at the same level.
Do you think they picked you for that reason?
I'm sure they picked me for that reason. I'm sure. And it's like I had the dance.
You were the victim of a plot.
The weird addition was you're dancing with the director. And it was me, and it was a tattooed gang member because he had tattoos all over his face. It was to show. And the scary part is the wardrobe and casting girls were all like Ally McBeal mother. I can't see Callista dancing with that guy. And that's what they're saying about the guys with the tattoos. And another one was like David E. Kelly's mother type, you know, woman wardrobe. She's like, David says everyone is equal in Ally's eyes. And it's like, oh, God, what are they going to say about me? So, you know what I mean? It was horrible. But when you do something like Monsters and Myths in America, you know, on the AI channel. Are you excited it's out there?
You know, I guess the time that I was most excited was the first time that anybody saw it and I was actually there.
Atta girl.
I was at a doctor's office and
it was running in the background.
And it was running in the background and like 4 different girls all pointed at the same time and said, "Is that you?"
God, that's
and
the
I
best.
was like, that is me.
Bravo. It's like when a commercial I was in ran at the gym and then like 2 other people started pointing at me from the running machine. And I thought, yes. You know, it's little things. You know what I mean?
And what was funny was that, you know, that was actually my shortest clip that they had seen.
Was it the acid rain one or was that the werewolf?
No, that was the one where I played the prison guard with the girl who was killing people or something.
Wow.
She hadn't killed anyone yet.
She was still in her bad girl but not bad girl phase.
Exactly.
Wow.
But I also have to admit that she is the reason that I am blonde.
Really? Oh, because she had the same hair color as yours.
No. My hair was naturally very dark, and I'd always made
You're
it
dark-haired? Really?
Yes. And
wow.
I made it slightly more black so that it would kind of pop. And it actually got me a fair amount of work. But
blondes do have more fun.
It seems like it. But part of it was just that I just kind of was getting, you know, put into directions I didn't know if I wanted to go. And one of my friends just had her heart set on me getting it done at her friend's salon, and I finally just went through with it. It took 6 hours to make my hair blonde, so that should
wow,
yeah.
6 hours, one session?
Yes, actually no, it was 7.5 hours.
Oh my God!
You could have gotten a tattoo.
Pretty much. But, you know, it took that amount of time to convert it. And, you know, I also learned to put on to do the eyelashes because of her. And I have to admit, just taking those little extra things just makes the world much better for me.
Wow.
Yeah, see?
You know what? It was definitely worth the time consumption there. I mean, like,
thank you.
A girl could get a dragon tattoo in 8 hours.
I mean, you have trouble being buried in the cemetery of your choice, but
also, you know, the key to any time you try to change your overall image is that you have to think, you know, is this going to be something that I can maintain? Is this going to be something that is going to bring something good to my life? And
right.
You know, for me, my thing was, could they make me blonde and make me look natural at the same time? And when the answer became yes, it was a no-brainer. I was like, okay, let's try this.
Yeah, go big or go home. I mean, you got to try,
Right.
you know. I remember Lonnie Anderson told me, I interviewed her for one of my books. Lonnie Anderson told me that she was stuck playing, she put it, peasants and immigrants with dark hair. And she goes, they wouldn't see me for anything else. And
well, she came up in the 70s, right? So,
right, late 70s. And she went platinum blonde and never stopped working.
that makes total sense.
You know, and
I mean, you know, call that culturalism or racism or whatever you want, but it is what it is.
yeah, she said as soon as she changed her hair, she started getting bombshell roles. You know.
Well, she definitely looked like one by then. You know, definitely one of the sexiest ladies to come around.
It's weird because you'll see her in a rerun of SWAT when she had dark hair. Remember the old they ran SWAT on BTV, and she's just this U5 day player. And this totally bland 70s actress is the bombshell of the episode. It's like, wait, what is Lonnie Anderson doing over there showing people how to paint? You know,
actually, one of the coolest things I ever saw was actually Lonnie Anderson with Charo, and they both sang in this thing. And I hope it comes up.
Love Boat, I'm guessing. Love Boat or Fantasy Island?
Maybe, but I actually one of my defining moments as wanting to be a musician was actually seeing Charo on Love Boat rip through Asturias. And
she is a very good guitarist.
Well, she's a very good guitarist because she studied with Segovia. Segovia got into trouble for being a communist, and because he got into trouble for being a communist, he had to teach a bunch of kids at a high school, and one of them included her.
Really?
Wow. How? That's like his work detail.
Yeah. It's his
work release program.
And that's probably the most embarrassing thing on his resume.
Hey, it's better than working for Caltrans and picking trash on the side of the road. You know?
Yeah, true.
But it definitely caused me to think, okay, you know, if she can have that much feel and she can have that much love for an instrument, that pretty much everyone has to respect the work that she does, I said, okay, that means that I could definitely do it as a musician.
Wow.
I just have to put in the time and the love.
Did you start with an upright bass before the electric bass?
No, the electric bass was first, probably because it was much cheaper in theory. In practice, I did end up paying slightly more for the electric. But I lucked out. A young lady who played the bass at the same time that I wanted an upright had quote unquote joined the clergy, which I believe that means she became pregnant.
Oh, wow.
and
Euphemisms.
and I think she had to sell it on short notice. So I bought off her bass, and I still have it. And wherever you are, lovely lady, I'm told your name is Donna. If you want your bass back, I will consider seriously selling it to you because I believe that you were under crisis. And you have the right. So
you are a wonderful person, Devorah Firestone.
Thank you.
So she did you the favor. You would sell it to her the same price you bought it for, right?
Exactly.
Double.
No.
It's a buyer's market, baby.
No, I'd definitely sell it even.
Wow.
But it's just goodwill because it happened to me, and it gave me a great time as a student to be able to upgrade my skills and to really develop, the discipline and the love for just working hard at something that I needed. So that was a big deal. It was a lot of fun. And I've just been lucky to actually have, female role models in that area. But I have to admit, I didn't really need them to some degree because the reason that I wanted to play guitar, bass guitar, was because of Gene Simmons. Because I liked that he was big and scary.
Wow, Gene Simmons, really?
Yeah.
You meet him, he's not that big and he doesn't look scary.
Well, I was a small child at the time when I first saw him, so to me he was
Kiss
big
meets the
and scary.
Phantom in the Park, right?
And he had those giant shoes.
Yes, the dragons.
How tall is he without platforms? Is he 6 foot?
I thought he was like 5'8". You know what I mean?
No, he's got to be tall.
5'8", 5'9", around
That makes
there.
the other guys
So-
even shorter.
Yeah.
So I've heard rumors that Tom Cruise and Schwarzenegger were both that height too. Is that right?
Schwarzenegger, I met Schwarzenegger
He's
on
6'1",
a couple
right?
sets.
He's 6
No,
foot-
no,
oh,
he's
he's
smaller
6
than Lou. He's smaller than Lou. Schwarzenegger's just under 6, I think. And everyone gets mad when you say that, but it's true. Lou Ferrigno towers over him. You know?
Oh yeah, well I said I seen Lou at the
Well, and
conventions.
in a lot of ways, it was very impressive that Lou Ferrigno developed all those muscles being as tall as he was. Because he was very tall and thin to start with, and all that came from sheer will.
Yeah, no, you're right. And getting beat up weekly in Queens, Brooklyn.
But also, it kind of hits you just how much, and I don't want you to overtake being lost in the word, but how much kind of ableism there was at that time, because people had deemed him to be not articulate enough to put on the screen. They didn't want him to talk for long periods because he had
because of his deaf in one ear.
Yeah, he had a slight hearing difficulty, and it affected his voice. But the thing is, I saw him on this one show later
I'm guessing
in the 80s
Love Boat.
No, where he was actually playing an ER guy.
Code Red.
Yes, Code Red, and actually he sounded just fine to me. Yeah, there was something slightly different about his voice, but honestly, it gave you something to listen to.
Yeah, and again, the cool thing of doing that book on him, I got so used to his voice. The hard part about Lou Ferrigno for me was when you would go to his house. It was like going to a pantheon of Greek gods, his wife, his kids. Everyone is perfect, and they're I would go home every day with my tape recorder and do a flurry of completely useless push-ups. I mean, because you're walking around, everyone, even the dogs, even the pug dogs in the Ferrigno house were walking on the hind legs and looking amazing.
Wow.
It was pretty impressive.
Now we've got about 45 minutes left. We got to move on with these credits here.
Yeah,
we love horror. We love werewolves. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about the beast. It's based on
the
a real
American
incident.
Werewolf Project.
Oh, okay. The American Werewolf Project.
Not on the movie.
Was yes, it was not related to any other American projects.
Werewolf in London, yeah.
But it definitely was one of those sort of quasi copy type films where people have high production values and they've got some little bits of ideas that they add on to something that's well known. And for me, that my part of the role was really just part of a prologue. The idea is that everyone there, of course, was looking for paranormal experiences, which was the thing that people did at that time. And what year was that?
2014.
Yeah, right about 2012, 2014, there was all those little project movies that were all about, happening into these paranormal experiences. And so, this movie was based around investigators into that type of thing. And of course, you had your skeptic, and then you had your people who really believed. And I was part of one of the people who the skeptics ripped up because I was a complete lie.
Oh.
So that's always fun because the thing is, I had even seen once one of these real life shows where people were doing that type of thing, and how sometimes the host of the show would actually do something for fun, like throw a coin to see if people freaked out and believed that something was happening, or something silly like that, just to see if they could fool you. So
was there any werewolf? Was there any creatures seen in this?
Yes, but not in my section. But I knew the guy who played the werewolf. I met him, and he had been. He did some type of Alien versus Predator type game thing.
Really?
Yeah. He had done several monsters before. And it was really funny to me because he was an amazingly good-looking guy, but for whatever reason, I guess he just didn't want to be recognized. So he enjoyed playing monsters.
Wow.
So you got to have good physical movement to convince, have a convincing monster.
Oh, yes. He was a former gymnast, and I think he said that he was also some type of obstacle course type guy. What do they call that when you have a map and then you have to go somewhere really fast?
Yeah.
Orienteering. Yeah, so he had to do that, and it was like that thing combined with like a Ragnar type obstacle, and it was an amazingly well-known sport at that point. So he was telling me he was doing all that, and I thought, oh, geez, it's a good thing that no one actually had to deal with him in real life, because they would have been in serious trouble.
Wow.
So, yeah, really normal guy otherwise. Just love to wear the monster costumes.
But the famous beast, by the way, there's
what if we want to see it? Is it on DVD? Do we get it on Amazon or what?
Oh, I believe it is. So
based on the Beast of Bray Road, the real Midwestern or real fake, I don't know,
But yes, some friends of mine in Baltimore had been doing some very high quality productions, and all based on getting the lead lady into films. And I think she may even be around LA right now.
Jessica Felicia, right?
Yes, Jessica Felicia. She's really quite a good actress. But
she looks like Ariel from The Little Mermaid.
Oh, does she remind you of Ariel?
A little bit.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
I'm sticking with the blonde we have here, but yes.
So do you guys have great monsters? Who do you like?
Well, if we're talking like
movie monsters.
Oh, okay. Well, got to be Jaws. The shark in Jaws.
Well,
I like Alien, of course. So the classics.
Monster, real monster.
Bigfoot, man.
Bigfoot.
I like sea creatures. I like Gill Man.
Like Swamp
creature
Thing?
from Black Lagoon, Gill Man.
I knew Swamp Thing. Dick Durock. I did.
Swamp Thing. Yeah,
I knew Swamp Thing.
That's great.
I like the amphibious monsters.
I did his last interview. The last interview he gave before he unfortunately died of stomach cancer was for my book.
Oh, wow.
Dick Durock.
You know everybody.
Well, every now and then, but when you look at that movie, they said the hard part about that, because they shot it in North Carolina or Charleston, South Carolina.
It's like in the bayou areas, right?
Craven said the hardest part was sending PAs out every weekend to saw off all the branches, because he goes, the stunt guys, Dick Durock and the guy stunting for Arcane, could have been impaled on some of those roots. So when you cut, you had to cut right down there, so there was nothing sharp sticking up, because you're full. It was a cheap little Avco Embassy movie, the first one.
Right.
Wow.
And so you're shooting in a gator-filled swamp with a bunch of branches. There's no upside to playing Swamp Thing in the 1980s.
No,
oh, yeah.
Not.
By the time they did the series, they were shooting on the cheap in Florida, and it was much better.
Yeah. I'm always interested in how all these things are done. I'm lucky enough to be friends with some folks who do a lot of grip work and things like that. They're called the scene snipers, and they're quite good, and they do really interesting things. And last year they went to Hawaii and they did like zip lines and water slides and stuff. And just thinking about all the things that people like that can do, and thinking about how unlucky people were in the 70s when you just didn't have as many resources or time or money to spend on
Horrifying.
things.
Yeah.
So, and just like how, we all love the superhero movies, but just think about how these movies would have looked in the 70s or 80s,
Not very good, actually. I mean,
Oh God, they did a few attempts and they were horrible. They just they just didn't. You can't.
Who was one of the first people in like the 70s or 80s who tried to play Captain America?
That was the great Red Brown. He also played Your Hunter from the Future, one of those cable TV favorites. I actually have an interview with him coming up in Infinity, talking about Captain America, and he has a great story. He's in a piece of crap called Space Mutiny, which Riff Tracks is actually going to do a nationwide parody of. And the guy looks like a superhero. I mean, he's done a ton of movies.
We saw him at Frankenstein's. He's still in good shape.
He's in great shape. Well, he was a cop for a while.
Oh.
He's from a family of cops, and he was a bartender in the service. But the 70s, they didn't have what we have now. I mean, you look at the first Captain America TV movie. And they're not only is the effects are base, they're crude. I mean, God bless them, they put Christopher Lee in one of them as the bad guy. But in fact, the Captain America TV movies was directed by Ivan Naj.
Oh wow!
Who was Heidi Fleiss' husband and pimp? You know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah, I can say that. They say it in the documentary, so we're covered. But he was running prostitutes all over Hollywood.
Oh my goodness!
And he's directing this Captain America movie.
I mean, I'm sure there'll always be there, no matter who's actually running them.
Yeah. Still, there's something an added level of
just make it legal already and tax it.
Like weed. But what's interesting is it's so crude, and the lack of. Stan Lee will tell you about how he was tearing his hair out because there was all this disbelief. I mean, when you would look at the Hulk, I think of all the 70s Marvel productions, Hulk came closest to getting, because he got the melancholy feeling of regret, which was right from the book.
Right.
You look at the Spider-Man TV series where Spider-Man is the Mickey Mouse of Marvel. He's famous for his snappy patter.
Oh, yeah.
He pulls on the mask and it's just a stunt man. And you would see the profile change on the mask.
Oh, yeah.
And Spider-Man wouldn't say a damn thing in costume because it wasn't him. But they wouldn't even ADR the lines. You know what I mean?
And I know this may be blasphemy to some degree, but I have to admit Tom Holland is the best Spider-Man.
You're dead wrong. I'm sorry. As terrible as Spider-Man,
because he can do the moves. He can do the banter. He can do the banter. He's just like the Spider-Man.
Tobey Maguire, baby. That's your Spider-Man.
No,
Spider-Man 2 by Sam Raimi is the best Spider-Man movie. There, I said it.
Well, I mean, I like the way that movie was done, but as far as Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, I never quite got into him at the same level I did with the guy who did the Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends and had all that cool banter and all the cool things to say to the villains.
Hey, Chuckles.
Exactly. That's the stuff that Tom Holland can do that Tobey did not do that well.
If you read the last issue of Wizard magazine, you remember Wizard?
Yes, I do.
The last interview, and if you're listening, Gareb Shamus, you piece of crap, you still owe me for this article. I did a 30-year anniversary of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends where I got everybody.
Right.
And believe it or not, the hardest guy to get, I got Spider-Man, whose name I'm blanking on.
Yeah, me
great character actor.
Someone look it up.
Yeah, hang on, give me a second. I'll tell you who he is.
Okay.
The hardest guy to get, the girl from Family Affair was Firestar. Mm-hmm. The hardest sissy on Family Affair was Firestar. The hardest person to get, the guy who was in the most demand, was Frank Welker, who was Bobby Drake, the Iceman.
Right.
Because he was the original Fred and still voices Fred, even though he's got to be in his 70s. He still voices Fred on Scooby-Doo. He's Fred from Scooby-Doo.
Wow.
But more importantly, one of the amazing things about him is he became Hollywood's big animal guy. Any movie you see with an animal is Frank Welker.
Wow.
He's the voice of he's the voice of Kathoga in The Relic. He's the Nazi saluting monkey. The same year he did, the same year he started Amazing Friends, he was the Nazi saluting monkey in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Wow.
That's him as the voice of the monkey. If you watch the Matthew Broderick Godzilla, when Godzilla's going through the sewer, that's Frank Welker.
Wow.
You know what I mean? He was Herbie the robot on the Fantastic Four cartoon.
Oh, yeah.
He still couldn't explain why the character was universally hated. He goes, how can you hate Herbie? I go, Frank, they hate your effing guts.
Because you take away the Human Torch because kids will light themselves on fire.
But that wasn't the real reason, though. That's what Marvel gave. The real reason is when Frank Price, a producer at Universal, he was the head of Universal TV at the time, Frank paid a certain amount of money for the rights to like a dozen Marvel characters. And one of them was Captain America. One of them was Spider-Woman. You know, not Spider-Man because they lost the rights to that to Chuck Freeze, who was doing the series. The Incredible Hulk and the Human Torch. Frank Price, I think because of his age, he grew up with the Android Human Torch, not the Marvel Human Torch.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
And Frank Price, actually, here's a great story.
Oh, and the original Human Torch eventually became the Vision.
Right, exactly right. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. You are officially a former 10-year-old boy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
You are the coolest nerd guest we've ever had. In fact, the coolest thing about that, the original Vision, the Human Torch.
Well, my first date came from the comic book shop, so you're on.
Wow. Did you go out with Stan Lee or Roy Thomas? That's impressive because what happened is when they did, Frank Price was the Universal executive. He had like a 10-year-old son when they were shooting the Hulk pilot.
Yeah.
They cast Richard Kiel, who played Jaws in the James Bond movies. And his son, who went on to direct some of the Leprechaun movies, he's kind of a straight-to-video wonder. You know, the guy's done a lot of straight-to-video horror. Am I boring you? We're going to be back on you in a minute, baby. But back to your life story. But hold on. Frank Price took his son to the set, thinking because his son read comics and watched cartoons, he thought his son would be blown away. The kid looked at Richard Kiel and said, that guy ain't the Hulk. And the only guy in the target audience is this kid. So all the Universal executives are like crapping a brick because the only kid, he might have been 10 to 13, the only kid on the set just told them their Hulk wasn't the Hulk. Because, everyone knew the Hulk was muscular. Kiel was not muscular. He was big, but not muscular.
Yeah.
So they had to turn around and recast the Hulk. You know, basically told Kenneth Johnson as he was shooting this in '77, it was a $2 million pilot, which was huge.
Wow.
For back then.
That's got to be like 30 or 50 now.
Yeah. And so when he turned around and suddenly realized he needed another Hulk, and Johnson's very diplomatic, and he said, Richard just wasn't giving us the visual appeal we needed for the Hulk, you know, because everyone knows the Hulk is muscular. And you couldn't CG the Hulk like you could today. And Lou Ferrigno, they went with Lou Ferrigno because Johnson liked Arnold Schwarzenegger, but he said Lou Ferrigno's Hulk was bigger. Arnold's only like 5'9", 6 feet.
Right.
Lou is 6'4", and big. So Lou was the Hulk, you know? And I mean...
And he had the body mass.
Yeah, the only chance of getting a Hulk remotely like the one from the comics at that time was Lou Ferrigno, you know?
He was it.
Yeah, and he was it. I mean, you still look at that guy. He's 60-something now, and you still look at him and think, there's the Hulk, you know? So that's why they recast, because the son of Frank Price did not like him.
Wow.
Well, it takes a kid to say that. I mean, that I can just see that.
The Emperor's New Clothes. It's the kid who points out the guy's name.
He points out the reality. Yeah, this is a Hulk, and is going, no, it's not.
Yeah.
It's just like when I used to when I used to do Heroes for Hire. Remember I had Spider-Man.
Yeah, Jeff used to do Spider-Man at children's birthday parties.
And this kid comes up and goes, "You're not real. You're just a guy in the costume." And I was wearing I let my friend Tom, this guy, what was his name? Tom Klein, okay?
You probably both stank of weed, by the way.
We were up in the Heights.
Weed and sweat.
25th Street at this kid's birthday party. And
Spider-Man
this kid
had an erection.
went in and he took a rock and he dropped it on Spider-Man's foot, on Tom's foot.
Oh my goodness.
And so you're just a guy in a costume.
Who are you dressed? Wait, I thought you were.
Kid when we picked him
I thought
up.
you were Spider-Man. Who are you dressed as?
I was Batman, and he was. We did too, and he was
You
Spider-Man.
don't mix the company. Batman never goes anywhere with Spider-Man.
They did on this party. So we took that kid and we swung him. We grabbed him by his feet and swung him around until he started crying. And
I'm assuming he wasn't the birthday boy, just some random neighborhood.
no, he
a-hole.
wasn't the birthday boy. Little asshole. Ruining it for all the kids. You're just a guy in a costume.
By the way, out of the mouths of babes.
But yeah, I know what that's like.
There's always one kid who thinks it's their job.
But
Jonathan-
he did. He looked like legit Spider-Man. So
Jonathan Frakes, before he landed the role of Commander Riker on Star Trek, Jonathan Frakes used to deliver furniture and he would do Captain America at children's birthday
he
parties.
looked ridiculous in that costume.
And he said, there's the famous shot of Jimmy Carter on the White House lawn with Spider-Man and Captain America. And the Captain America who looks shamed out of his mind is Jonathan Frakes, 11 years before Star Trek. But one of the terrible stories is he said Spider-Man had love handles.
Oh my goodness.
And he said every appearance, one kid would go, "You're not Spider-Man, you're too fat."
That's why they got Scott Leva.
Wow.
I bought the costume from Scott Leva, and I also got Jonathan Frakes' Captain America costume.
You have us from the cover of Marvel Team of 127, actually.
And so I bought the deal when I met Scott Leva. I for $700 I got Captain America costume and the Spider-Man costume.
Really?
We went down to the Daily Report. And we got our picture in the paper. I looked like the Steve Ditko Spider-Man.
Sure you did.
This other guy, John Roth, wore the Captain America suit, and I told the photographer, shoot it from the knees up because he doesn't have his boots.
Oh, they're going to shoot
So
the knees
he's got
out.
the shield, and Captain America doesn't have his red gauntlet boots. And I'm going, I told that guy. And I was just like...
The cheeseball nature of it. I'm sure he went right for the
But
non-boots.
it was that same Captain America that Jonathan Frakes had. It just wasn't convincing.
It's so painful. Yeah,
Even though it was made by Marvel back then.
Yeah, I mean, too much beak, too much chin. You know what I mean? I mean,
Honestly, especially after seeing the mesh one, the mesh Captain America costume with the leather and stuff, I was like, why didn't anyone think of that sooner?
Yeah.
It was so realistic looking, and it did look like something that could have been done in 1940.
41.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think, some of us are just dumb. We follow the yellow brick road and don't even know to step off.
Well, but I mean, the Captain America 79 pilot or 78, whenever they did it, they had so little imagination that Steve Rogers in the movie, they couldn't buy him being frozen in ice. So he's Steve Rogers Jr. because his father was the original Captain America who was killed in World War II bombing. So much for the wonder in Marvel. Watch it next time it's on. It's in there.
I wonder if that could have actually been them trying to connect that story just kind of mentally to the Phantom. Because the Phantom had been in the Washington Post and all the New York Times, all the big newspapers.
Yeah, the Phantom had been in the Seattle PI. We could only see the Seattle when I was a kid. I never knew what the Phantom was until we were visiting my grandparents in Seattle, and it was in the strip. And my grandfather was really excited about the Phantom, and it's like, and he punches one ring for the good guys, and he punches one ring for the bad guys. Like what? And he's running around the jungle in purple tights. But you're right. Every time he died, they would throw the tights to the next guy. The lineage. So the ignorant natives, times change. The ignorant natives decided it wasn't a guy in a costume. It was this undying guy, which is kind of cool.
Right.
But I remember interviewing Jeffrey Boehm, who wrote Lost Boys, and he said the one thing when he did the Phantom movie with Billy Zane, he goes, they had to make sure the natives were hip to the gag. Most of the tribal elders knew it was a different Phantom. It was the rank and file people, the rope people who didn't know that it was the same guy, a different guy in the outfit every year.
Right.
I the costuming was really great. Billy Zane filled that role good. It just wasn't, people, our young generation just doesn't know about the 40s characters, the Flash Gordons,
Lamont Cranston, all those guys. There was an evolutionary curve that Superman and Batman made that those guys didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
And when they did the big budget Shadow movie and they did the big budget the problem with the Phantom is a great movie. It's very true to the strip and all that. But the problem with the Phantom movie was the marketing. I mean, at the time, Pogs were huge.
Right.
Oh, Pogs and Slammers.
Yeah, and then Pogs and Slammers. And the poster for, if you find the the DVD cover of the Phantom, it's the old, they even kept the stupid catchphrase because they wanted to get kids in there. And Dick Tracy did not make the evolutionary curve that Batman did.
No, it didn't.
And so when you did a Dick Tracy movie, they had to struggle to drag this $150 million movie over the 100 million mark.
Right.
And it was so expensive and wasted so much time trying to crack 100. You never had another Dick Tracy.
Right.
But with the Phantom, they were going to get those Pog kids in there. So the poster, which is still framed in the Paramount backlot in one producer's wall, shows Billy Zane with the ring in the air, and it says, "Slam Evil." Really? How 90s. Come on, Poggers, let's all slam evil together.
Yeah, and in the 80s, they also called mosh pits, they called them slam dances.
Yeah, exactly.
No slam dancing in this club.
Oh, my God. Yeah. The Oscars Cornhuskers was the only slam dance cover.
Yes, the Oscars Cornhusker in Azusa, right?
Yeah, a girl from school who could drive took me there to make sure she was so terrified of being slammed while slam dancing. I was literally there to keep this cute girl from being bashed into. I would knock everyone down who tried to knock Leslie down.
That's hilarious.
Oh, man. Now, I'm looking at this movie poster here.
Uh-huh.
And it says, happily scratched with blood, like the N over it, happily ever after, but it's happily never after. And so what's that a movie about?
Okay, that's actually one of the TV things. That's the same kind of idea. So you've got basically a lovely middle-aged lady got into trouble because she tried to marry in the 80s. And I guess it was very difficult at the time. So I don't see how, but whatever. Anyway, she had trouble, and she ended up meeting this guy who seemed, of course, perfect at first. But
as any lifetime will teach you, he's a creep.
Because all the Jeffrey Dahmer types are hot at first.
At least a lifetime.
So anyway, but yeah, she meets her demise at the hands of some jerk. But yeah, in that one I played a friend, and it was fun to play the friend because I got to do a bunch of waitressing things that I hadn't done in like 10 years.
Wow, paying your dues on screen.
That's right.
So you were handing out menus and saying, "Don't date him, Tammy."
No, I was actually the only girl on the set who could hold the tray with all like the shakes and stuff.
Wow.
So
that is a skill.
That is a firestone to the rescue.
They were all very impressed. And I was going, I have no idea why this is impressive. I was doing this before I even thought of acting. At least as a living. I always thought acting was something you did for fun. So
well, good girl. Yeah. But if you treat it that way, you know what I mean? If you do other stuff at the same time, not waitressing, but what you do,
well, for me, every audition is an opportunity to act. I almost don't care what they do with it next. If they want to run something, they want to have me do some more, great. But if they don't, I'm like, yeah, okay. But I just slammed it down. I kicked ass because that's what I wanted to do, and that's why I came in there. So for me, it's that moment I get to act. It's just like it's just like a famous baseball player saying, those could be my last few minutes ever playing baseball.
By the way, yeah.
Yeah.
And so you want to make sure every game is like your final game. Mm-hmm. And I mean, with an audition, my take on it is you got to do what you're there to do. I mean, the hardest part of that audition is when the whole room is dressed differently than you are.
No, I think that's advantage time.
That's what I'm,
When you look different and you act different than everybody else, you're the one they remember when they leave.
Because when you're in a different outfit, you know what I mean? I mean, like they change the color or something. You just got to go with your gut and you got to decide, I'm going to do something different than the 40 guys who are in here right now. You know what I mean?
But I have to say one thing I have experienced here, and it's kind of how I knew that I was being respected professionally, was when I would go into an acting room, there would be 10 ladies there, and all 10 ladies there would be roughly my type.
And they would try to psych you out, right?
Well, I don't.
What are you doing here?
I don't really think I noticed them, honestly. I've always had enough experience with people who would try to psych you out or try to treat you a certain way and try to generally just make you feel like you couldn't do anything. And I've always just kind of known. There's a saying. Those who say it can't be done should not be interrupting the person doing it.
Yeah, but that's not how it works. You will watch them try to psych out the other actor or actress. They'll, hey, buddy, what are you doing here?
I had a girl get in my face once, and I just didn't hesitate to push her away.
Mm-hmm.
I literally got her right at the neck and pushed her away. And was
the Grima worm tongue. They want to get in your head and they want to worm. Yeah, and I see it happen to actresses all the time.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Like I said, I guess I've just had so much. I was one of those kids who got bullied and all the whole thing. And I just first I have a poker face, and second, I just have a lot of tolerance for dealing with people who are mean. I'm like, if I have to do that, I can do that. But luckily I don't have to.
Wow,
so,
good point.
I've got a pretty good life at this point, and most people I run into are pretty good. And honestly, people are tolerating less of that kind of behavior now.
Mm.
They're kind of demanding that sets be good places to be, and that,
happy places,
and that overall that leaders behave in a way that's not going to cause a harassment lawsuit.
You saw what happened to Chase Crawford on Lethal Weapon.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
you know what I mean. I mean, it's a new era, so
Yeah, you need to cultivate a reputation of being someone that people want to work with.
Sets, the best sets are mellow, and if the lead is mellow, it's a mellow set, or the director's mellow, nobody's going to act up if.
Well, I mean, I tend to prefer the kind of playful, energetic sets because you can always turn down the energy. It's really hard to turn it up because otherwise you look like you're forcing it and people know.
You can't fake it,
Well, you can, but you got to really know how. And that unfortunately half the actors don't know how. They have to make themselves feel stuff in order to act. And at least more recently, my most recent acting technique, which is the one my coach Stephen Mitchell created, it's based on developing your character from the outside instead of the inside. So that means you don't have to live the experience.
Yeah, lying to your body, getting itself worked up about the Beast of Bray Road.
You do like that beast.
Yeah, I do. I love that. Well, it's one of the big new urban legends. The Beast of Bray Road kind of showed up around the same time as Chupacabra.
Right.
And he doesn't get the press Chupacabra gets. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm thrilled that you're in that. I did a commercial with a girl who was in the Beast of Bray Road for the Sci-Fi Channel.
Oh, okay.
And she was like horrified mother, or a horrified neighbor. Yeah. And we did this bank commercial on Halloween several years back. And we were shooting at the Linda Vista Hospital, the haunted hospital.
Wow. And
because it was Halloween, there was a long lunch break. And she goes, let's explore the basement. And my inner self is like, no, not the basement of a haunted hospital. But, like 3 other people on the crew are, yeah, we all have to go to the basement. And so they talked me into joining them in the basement. And it was half flooded. It was moody, scary as hell. Brick, all old brick, like an old insane asylum. We went deeper and deeper into this damn thing, and I'm thinking, and the fat kid in a horror movie, don't do it, get out of there, you're expendable. And the further we went in, we hit a trolley. There was a trolley, like a trolley cart in the middle, with blood slides with real patients' names from the 70s.
Wow.
Ooh.
And I said, that's it, gang, I'm out. In a horror movie, this is the last thing you see before the demon destroys everything.
Right.
Those blood samples could regenerate and become this.
Once you find somebody's blood, but nobody was minding the store. I mean, it was like they abandoned. There were moldy medical files. We passed the cabinet where it was literally like a steady drip. And you would pull open the medical files, and it was full. There were X-rays. There were people's X-rays, and like I said, blood samples. Mm-hmm. And it was that moment in a horror movie, you know, where if you're the expendable guy, the comic relief or the fat guy, you get out of there. And that's when I decided, I've hit my limit. I'm going to go hit craft services, have fun getting killed.
That's funny.
But it was just creepy, you know. And but I was so impressed that she did The Beast of Bray Road. Her other big credit, if you're listening, her other big credit was she was Lindsay Lohan's mom and I Know Who Killed Me.
Oh, okay.
But she did The Beast of Bray Road for Sci-Fi Channel, which really impressed the hell out of me.
Now, tell me about you being an escapee in a series of one TV series. Where was that filmed?
That actually was filmed. You'll love this at my home.
Wow!
At your home.
It was indeed. It was a. I probably shouldn't have mentioned that, but that's a really good entertainment center right there. That's showing the back of the place that I'm filming, and it's the series of one is a collection of monologues that my coach wrote, and the idea was to present us in our type, so that we can sell what it is we're actually trying to sell versus me doing a million mom roles for students in this area before I end up with footage I need. So it was a good start, and it was also a way for me to start learning the technique and get ready to do my feature. So it was a lot of fun, and it actually didn't take that long to film. I filmed it in 2 different days to get it just right. And I think the biggest problem was constructing new apartments catty corner from where my house is.
Was this out here or back east?
It was out here.
Wow, okay.
So it was a lot of fun, and you know, it's shot very simply. I think the quality's pretty good, and it was just an experience to do because it's been many years since I've tried to do anything quite that long. That's a 13-minute monologue, I believe.
Wow, you did a 13-minute monologue.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to be off book?
You know, it took longer. It took me months originally, but you know, once I actually learned a good technique to memorize, I find I can learn, you know, easily, 6-7 minutes in a day.
Wow.
So, you know, part of it was just not knowing the technique.
But did it take you a while? Did it take you a while to memorize? I mean, was it harder?
That one was very hard because, like I said, it had been many years since I'd even tried to do anything that long as, just only me.
Wow.
So that was hard. But but that being said, like I said, once I learned that you can actually learn tiny phrases very quickly. So if you learn a ton of tiny phrases very quickly by repeating them a lot.
Wow. So memorization's your technique.
So, memorization was a new technique, definitely. But also, I found that actually writing down the course of action would at least allow you to act something out. Even if, you didn't know the exact words, you would get close enough because you knew what happened next. So sometimes just conceptualizing how something's supposed to be will get you close enough.
Wow.
And actually, I was praised once at an audition on that because I actually messed up almost all the lines because they were very difficult and technical. And it was one of my first auditions ever. And I remember that I had drawn that through line before I'd gone in. And because I'd drawn that through line, I was able to use mostly simpler words that I actually understood and to say those instead. So while on one hand, they really wanted their dialogue back, on the other hand, they were very impressed that I created a useful story out of their thing.
Wow. The problem, the problem, you always have a bad audition like that. I auditioned for a TV show where I memorized, they sent me 2 speeches the night before.
Well, in this case, I actually didn't even have the night before. They gave it to us cold. And
they wanted it off book within 10 minutes, right?
Right.
Oh, my God.
And I was just a beginning actor at that point. I had no idea how to do something like that. So I basically wrote down the story and kind of knew it was going to happen, and then I just floated with it.
With my worst audition, because we all have one, I memorized this speech. They sent me 2 speeches, and I told my brother Don, I'm going to learn one of them because they only want one. And I said, I would rather have one cold than half-ass both because you're going to miss. So I got them one cold. I'm about a line in. The casting director's there. The producer of the show was there. It was like an 11th hour. They were getting rid of somebody. And they go, "That's good, Patrick, but we want to hear the other speech."
Oh, no.
Worst audition I've ever given.
Oh, no.
I was 2 or 3 lines into the one I memorized. They wanted the other one, and it was, you'd have to look at the copy. It was the worst audition I ever had. You'll have more than one, don't worry.
I'm sure
They're fun, but when you overcome it and get the gig, that's always the best part.
But the interesting thing about coming here was actually just the overall level of competition. Because I remember actually the first time I cried on camera was here.
Really?
And, yeah, I can't,
Acting exercise or actual role?
it was purely an audition, and it looked like a great role. But they told me I did an amazing job, and they said and they told me before I left so I would know. They said, unfortunately, well, we had to audition you for this role, that we'd actually already cast it.
That's the worst when they do they're doing it for attention or publicity in the trades.
Why do they do that? I mean,
Usually they've got like a bombshell actress from overseas. De Laurentiis used to do De Laurentiis was famous for this.
they already pick it, but then they have auditions.
They already
because
have her, but they have an audition for remember remember when they cast the Robin. They had every idiot come out dressed like Robin, so they could have. Oh my God, the new Batman's coming, and they're looking for Robin.
Right.
And they already have Robin picked out. Robin's already learning his lines and working with the stunt coordinator. But they want to be in the news clip. They want the entertainment section. It's publicity.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
But obviously, the fact that they pulled you aside to tell you this meant you wowed them enough that they told you the truth.
Right. Well, I certainly appreciated it because, like I said, I had done it well enough, and that was before I learned the outside in technique. I was still doing Meissner at that time, so I was really making myself go through this.
Wow, terrible! Yeah.
I mean, that's the hard thing to do, to just cry on cue.
It is,
Yeah.
and and I honestly think that I can do it on occasions, and I don't really know when.
Wow.
But in this
Well,
case,
hopefully we won't see it between now and the last 10 minutes.
well, luckily for me, this has been great fun, and I do appreciate you guys taking me in. And
We're honored. You've been great.
it's really been a piece of work.
No, you were here before us, which shames us.
Yeah.
Well, I as a former musician, I have a saying for myself.
You're never a former musician, baby. You're one guitar in your hands away from playing.
You could be right. I actually did buy a brand new.
See?
I actually did buy a
Bass?
brand new Paul Reed Smith recently.
Wow.
Oh, that's a very good quality guitar.
Yeah. So
great instruments.
I am trying to
TRS. Yeah.
Yeah, Paul Reed Smith. I'm trying to get my chops back. But yeah, one of my close friends was a Thelonious Monk competition guitarist.
Wow.
And he was given several guitars by Paul Reed Smith. So I had seen these things for many years and really wanted one.
Wow.
And the one I have, I admit, is not as spiffy as anything like
Oh,
that.
shut up. It's a Paul Reed. Don't diss your ex. It's yours.
But it's still a beautiful instrument. And honestly, I can't complain just because it really does meet, honestly, professional requirements at a price that is not remotely professional. So, I mean, that's the best that you can ask for.
Wow.
So it's great to restart, and I'm really having a great time playing it, and hope that means I'll continue and get back into it. I'd really love to be able to at least play part-time and play out again. Also, one of my jazz friends from DC really wants me to come and play again. So he's like, "Well, when are you gonna bring your bass?" And I'm like. But it took me a bit of time actually to find a suitable bass technician for my upright here in LA, and I finally found one. Ironically, a lady.
Wow.
So I'm kind of happy to find one, and I'm happy to find a good one who's not going to charge me an arm and a leg to get it done.
Yeah.
So to get everything set up, because you have to break it down to ship it. So I did that, and it cost me probably almost $1,000 to ship it. So
because it takes up so much.
Yeah, my upright bass is 6'4" before I put the peg up.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah, and it's probably as wide as you.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you got
I like it already.
On it, so it takes up quite a space in a box.
Oh, definitely. The box actually had to be put into my recycling container over 3 different weeks to make sure it didn't overfill and they would pick it up.
Wow.
So, but that was a trip, and it was definitely worth it. And I'm just so happy to be reconnecting with music right now, as well as doing the acting. But yeah, I just think that's the way of people here. You're always interested in 10 different things at once.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, if you wait around for the phone to ring, it'll never ring.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then if you do different things, if you follow your creative juices and just do different things as an outlet, you'll never be bored.
Right.
But I mean, even in the age of the cell phone, you can get calls anywhere now. You know what I mean? You're not tethered to a landline. And it's just, to me, waiting around for someone to call if they need you, that's boring. Who wants to do that? Do as much as you can while you can, you know?
Well, that's definitely true, and certainly in the age of guerrilla filmmaking, you certainly have many options to, really express yourself and to get into the types of roles that you want, because you can make them happen. And then other people can see what you can do, and they say, I need one of those. And, it's as simple as them giving you a call.
Question for you. Where can people follow you on Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat? How can people follow the wonderful career of Devorah Firestone?
Oh, well, I am on Twitter. I'm at Devorah F on Twitter. I'm also on Instagram.
It's Devorah, not Deborah. Devorah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I have the same name on Instagram, which has most of my funner stuff that goes along with the film things. But I'm also on Facebook. I have both a page and a personal file. And depending on where you live and why you're connecting with me is...
She doesn't want to hear from you, crappy convicts. Don't send her pictures of anything you wouldn't want to send to your mother or sister. Hey, nice. Exactly. No. Tell us, what do you have coming up? Anything shocking, cool, amazing?
Oh, well, I did just land a small film where I will be playing an evil white rabbit. So,
really?
Yes.
Hubba.
So I'll be a full grade hallucination and have lots of cool horror makeup and other.
Oh, you'll be a creature. You love being a creature. I've done a lot of creatures. They're fun.
Yes. Well, this creature is at least still supposed to be half woman, so that should be fun.
Who's doing your makeup? Do you know?
I don't know yet, but I know that the makeup test will come very soon, and it is coming to my Instagram. So
are they gonna give you a? Are you getting a? They're doing a mold, an algin out of your face. Are you doing a live cast?
I believe so.
Good. That'll be a little crazy, but yeah, suffer through it. It's worth it.
Oh, okay. I wonder if that can be reused.
It can be if they give you the live cast, and your pores will all be open once they're done. It'll be great. It's like
like a mud mask.
Yeah. You'll be in mud mask for like 20 minutes, but then when they take it off, because it's all alginate, your skin will be the best it's been in like a month.
Oh, wow. I'll have to consider that possibility.
Yeah. And as we're in the final minutes, I also want to thank Keisha Cat for showing us how to fix our Keurig. And more importantly, Devorah,
yes.
Is this going to be like an Alice in Wonderland thing? What's it called?
Oh, it is called Damaged. And it doesn't look too Alice in Wonderland at this point. It really just looks more toward the idea of somebody trying to give up their drugs. But that'll do.
That'll do.
Yeah.
I think it'll be great fun. But who knows? It could develop in the course of it being built, and it's possible that it might expand a bit before all said and done.
Wow, very cool.
So it is a budget that they've told me is larger than they originally thought. So I love the sound of that. That means
they're springing for makeup effects, which means hopefully you'll be paying honest rates.
Well, it also just means that someone believes in the story as written and perhaps the future outline of an expanded story.
Wow.
So, those are the kinds of things that, have to stay in your head, is that, so often people have test footage and they have a rough idea, but then they have a super powered idea if you increase our budget by 3 times.
Yeah. Well, the fact that they're springing for your prosthetics, that's impressive,
Yes, I think so.
And now we got about a minute to go. I want to thank everyone for listening to the Jeff Sargent Show. And remember, we're on Wednesday through Friday now.
That's right.
Roy and Jimmy will be handling the heavy lifting Monday and Tuesday.
Yes. Thank you, and we'll see you next week.
The dynamic, dazzling, delightful Deborah Firestone, thank you so much for joining us, baby.
Thank you so much.
You made Hot Chick Friday a joy for the last 2 hours.
It's burning up. Thank you.